Good afternoon, New Brunswick, and welcome to the New Brunswick Today show for this afternoon, Monday, May 8th, 2017. We've got a very special show for you today. We're coming at you live from the Hidden Grounds Espresso Bar here at 4C Easton Avenue, right near the New Brunswick train station. And we're continuing with our series of interviews with the gubernatorial candidates that want to be the next governor of New Jersey. Today we're going to be joined by a very special guy, Mr. Bill Brennan. He is, of course, the man who filed a criminal complaint against the current governor, Chris Christie, and he declared he's running for governor, and he's been shaking up that race ever since. So we're going to have an in-depth conversation with him today, the second in our series of interviews with the governor candidates. You might notice that today's show is a little different in other ways, too. Due to some technical difficulties with our usual equipment, we're doing things a little differently, so please bear with us. If there's maybe the camera might be a little wobbly today, or you won't see those lovely lower third graphics at the bottom of the screen, but we will have the high-quality professional version of this interview available on the New Brunswick Today YouTube channel later today. But if you want to hear it first, tune in, and please do us a favor, do your friends a favor, and share this live streaming video with your networks right now. You can share it right from the New Brunswick Today page so that they can see the interview with this interesting candidate, Mr. Bill Brennan. Also, come join us and see the friendly folks here at Hidden Grounds, and feel free to meet the New Brunswick Today team and candidate Brennan while he's here. We are at the Hidden Grounds location that's known as the Espresso Bar, closest to the train station. Now, while we bring our special guest out, we want to show you, this is a clip from Bill at the first debate that he really got to be a part of. This was the Institute for Social Justice's debate last week in Newark. And he really kind of stole the show. So here's one of his moments from that debate. We'll be right back with candidate for governor, Bill Brennan.
I mean, the African-American community in this country has been targeted by law enforcement and by the government in general. And I would not agree that we have a juvenile justice system. I would agree that we have a juvenile injustice system right now, where there is a problem with systemic problem in our justice system, and it needs to be dealt with honestly. The fact of the matter is, a young person in a suburban community is not going to go to a juvenile detention facility, but somebody from Newark just very well may go there for the same exact reason that the other one didn't. And where is this coming from? Well, let's go back to Ronald Reagan. Somebody up here quoted Ronald Reagan, and he was the law and order guy. He was the law and order guy. And when Bill Clinton had the opportunity to be the love and peace opposition to that, he didn't do it. He was on our side, and he doubled down. He came up with the term super predator, and his wife talked about super predator. And that's on us, people. That is on us. We did that. We created this hysteria about juveniles in the detention system and crime. And instead of saying that we can respond to these issues with love and peace and understanding, we said we're going to get tough. We're warriors. We're going to fight. And you know what? When you declare war on your own people, you end up occupying territory. You don't end up treating disease. You don't end up helping people. You don't end up doing anything productive in society. And we need to stop this mantra of fear and hatred and recrimination. What we need as a solution to this is to understand that the answer to hate is love. That the answer to these problems is understanding. That if somebody is angry, try and figure out why, because you know something? There's a lot of justifiable anger in this world, and it needs to be dealt with here and now. We can't keep pushing it down the road. We can't keep saying, I need to get elected, so I'm going to pretend I'm tough on crime. I'm not going to be tough on crime. I'm going to be tough on hate with love. Thank you.
And welcome back to the New Brunswick Today show. We're now joined by that man, Mr. Bill Brennan. Bill, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Charlie. Always a pleasure.
So, I think you are probably the most fascinating candidate in the race. You're not your typical politician. You've run for stuff before, but you go above and beyond. You've been fighting a lot of fights. Tell us, though, what's your origin story? How did you get to be where you are? You obviously have all these crazy backstories and adventures you've been a part of. Tell us, how did you end up running for governor, and how did you get your start, really?
Well, I think I was introduced to social justice at an early age because I lived in a neighborhood in Brooklyn that was gentrifying, and we weren't people of means. And in order to get the building to be vacated at a very young age, when I was in the third, fourth, fifth and sixth grades. The landlord in my building decided he was going to freeze us out, literally freeze us out. He wouldn't give us heat, he wouldn't give us hot water. So the New York City Metropolitan Council on Housing came in, and we had tenants organization meetings. And just backing up before that, I had been living in Nashua, New Hampshire for a few years, and my uncle was president of the firefighters local in New Hampshire. So he would pay us in pizza and soda, and we would leaflet the whole city of Nashua for various political activities. So, I got to meet Jimmy Carter and Mo Udall and a number of people when I was 10 years old. And I haven't seen a man as kind and generous and forthright and loving as Jimmy Carter since. And I think he gets a very bad rap as President of the United States. I think he was undermined and I think he was sabotaged. But I went from that environment of political activity to an environment of basically abuse, systemic abuse by landlords who wanted to vacate their buildings so they could go co-op or condominium. And eventually they won. I mean, 2 years without heat and hot water is a long time. And, we were the family that was boiling pots of water on the stove in the kitchen and taking cold showers and things like that. But I was fascinated by the passion and the integrity of the people who didn't know us at the Metropolitan Council on Housing. They were just good, decent people who saw a bad situation and tried to help us. And I said, I want to be like that. And, then further down the road, I had a situation that was a really frightening experience. I was in downtown Brooklyn with my mom, and I was maybe 10 or 11 years old. And I watched somebody get stabbed to death right in front of me. And the person who did the stabbing walked across the street from where it happened, stood next to me and laughed at the person that was dying in front of me. And I never really, I didn't have any grief counseling or post-traumatic stress counseling or anything like that, but I internalized it. And I said, I was so helpless because the man was so much bigger than me and he had a knife. And I literally felt powerless to do anything. And so these experiences in my childhood have led me to be an activist. And whether it's as a union activist, whether it's as a social justice activist, when I see the government inflicting pain on people, I feel the pain myself. I take it personally, and I feel like, look, I've been gifted, I've been blessed. I have an ability to comprehend things and argue things without taking notes, without having to study it. I look at a situation, I make a judgment not based upon who I like or who I don't like, but what's right. And I've been knocked down many, many times fighting these battles. People always remember the ones that I won, and I think that's great. But along the line, you lose half of what you're fighting for. But one thing I can say is anybody who's ever had a fight with me on any of these issues, even when they beat me, they don't want to have a second round.
You've certainly fought your way to a lot of respect where you come from. But tell me, you mentioned, family that were firefighters, and you became a firefighter.
Yes.
And that's part of your origin story, right? You ended up suing your bosses and winning, right?
Well, yeah. Along the lines of being an advocate, I came into the fire department in Teaneck shortly before they had a buyout, and almost half of the department retired at once. I was president of the firefighters union in Teaneck with less than a year on the job, and this was an epic struggle between removing all the benefits, protections, and union provisions and contract provisions that we'd all raised. And the town manager thought he was really going to take advantage of that and abuse us. And I was just in the right place at the right time, and I stopped a lot of terrible things from happening to that local. And I paid a terrible price.
Wait, you mean to tell me that you stood up for your union and you were retaliated against in New Jersey?
Shocking, I know. It's an epidemic. But I was fortunate. I got to the point where I was a madman. Every day I went to work, everything I did was studied and scrutinized, and I was hounded and harassed and humiliated and ridiculed and made to feel marginalized by the powers that be in the fire department. But I didn't break. And it went on for 10 years. The township of Teaneck, New Jersey spent close to $14 million trying to fire Bill Brennan from the Teaneck Fire Department. And I wouldn't go. I got to the point where it was affecting me so deeply that my attorney, out of concern for my well-being, told me just take $300,000 and quit that job. So I fired him and I tried the case myself. And in hindsight, he was literally trying to help me. I mean, it led to a lot of problems in my life. When you're that cornered,
Yeah.
I didn't handle it with the dignity and grace of a civil rights leader. I handled it with the anger and fury of somebody who's not accustomed to the abuse that was heaped upon me. But I survived it somehow. Every time that I was ready to give up, something happened. It always happens. When you're on the right path, you don't give up. Something always happens. And ultimately, I tried that case myself, the first case, and I got a $900,000 verdict in federal court without having gone to law school and without being an attorney.
Right. So you represented yourself, pro se, against this government that had been spending millions.
3 law firms, the town manager, the mayor and council, the chief, 2 deputy chiefs, and a captain. All were defendants in this lawsuit that I brought. And the trial lasted 3 weeks. And at the end of that trial, the jury awarded me $900,000, and I was still working at the time. So it was $900,000 working. And they didn't stop harassing me. It went on another 5 years. Only this time the lawyers weren't counseling me to quit the job, and we sued them again. And I had attorneys for the second one, and they settled with me. And they gave me $1.6 million, plus the remainder of the other lawsuit that I won. And they said, take an early retirement, and they declared victory. And I said, okay, you won.
Right. And so you took those funds, and you basically became a New Jersey hero, putting yourself through law school and using your skills to go after what you viewed as the most corrupt or the most damaging forces within the government.
Well, here's what's interesting. When I was going through, when I was at the darkest time of my struggle, the most hope that I had was when people came and helped me. And I said, I don't have to work anymore. I structured that settlement that I get $100,000 a year, which is about what I'd make as a lieutenant right now in the fire department, and I don't have to work for it. But I don't feel that I can just take that money without going back. I was one of the few who made it. So I see an injustice. I jump in. And
you went to Seton Hall Law School.
I did.
One of the best.
Well, yeah. After my success, I had 3 jury trials before I went to law school, and I won them all. 1 in state court, 2 in federal court, and then I went to law school and I learned civil procedure. And I said, boy, if I'd have done this, if I'd only known these things before I started suing these people, I would have done much better. But I just find that it's a lot like the fire service. You show up, there's chaos, there's confusion, there's pain and suffering, and you go there and you stay there until the scene is safe and the people are out of harm's way. And I'm doing the same thing, and I've been doing the same thing throughout my life. But whether it's racism in the Patterson Fire Department, racism in the Newark, New Jersey Police Department, whether it's sexism or anti-gay discrimination in the Pagoda Police Department, whether it's just a basic civil rights violation against a citizen, I find that at a gathering, if I take the podium and I speak truth to power, it resonates with the people in the audience. It gives them hope, and it creates momentum against them. Unfortunately, the tools that used to be available to people to fight this kind of retaliation, whether it's the Division on Civil Rights, whether it's the EEOC, whether it's Civil Service Commission, the Department of Labor, the Public Employment Relations Commission, they've all been what we call captured by this administration. And when I say captured, the people that are there are supposed to be looking out for merit and fitness, supposed to be protecting us from retaliation and abuse. They're not there for that reason. They're there.
The missions have been undermined.
Right. They're there to do what Chris Christie wants them to do, and that is to help crush dissent. And that's the Republican way in this country right now: crush dissent in any way possible.
Yeah, and Chris Christie and his friend, the president, have really a lot in common. New Jersey's been dealing with a lot of the things that the country is now coming to terms with people who are ostensibly in charge of these noble positions in government, actually being people who are folks who have in the past tried to undermine those very same agencies and fight against their powers.
If you wanted a crystal ball to see what was going to go on at the national level, you would have looked at New Jersey when Chris Christie took office, because he started out lying about everything he talked about. I mean, I could sit here and it became acceptable, and nobody pressed him on it. He said that
lying and bullying too.
And bullying too.
Yeah.
But he said when he lost $400 million in state education funds, first he said it was Rahm Emanuel. Rahm Emanuel produced emails and saying, "No, I warned you about this. You needed the teachers union." Then he said it was Brett Schundler. Brett Schundler produced emails, and Prince Rose was lying. So he's a scapegoater, he's a projector, he got caught in that lie. Then he said that when this toolkit that he came out with, which was basically a way to bust unions, he said that Sheila Oliver never reached out to him to try and discuss her alternative. Again, she produced a series of emails that said that man just lied about my attempts to reach him, and here's evidence of it. Then he said that a low-level manager, a mid-level manager, submerged all those rail cars during Hurricane Sandy, and that it wasn't his fault, and it wasn't his guy's
It's never
fault.
his fault.
Never his fault. But again, like emails, this guy just forgets that when you put it in an email, it's evidence. And I guess he learned, so he started using other people's phones to get around this.
And deleting messages,
Deleting messages.
So I want to get to, how you tangled with the governor and have been tangling with the governor for some time now. You kind of got a touchdown. One of your biggest successes was getting a judge to find probable cause that Governor Christie committed a very serious crime, second-degree crime, called official misconduct, for basically not stopping the Bridgegate scheme when he knew about it. And you've been fighting that fight, and you've even taken on another fight. Last time we talked about the fight against Christie and how to get a probable cause determination, all that. But you've actually taken it up a notch, and you're going after Christie's best friend and mentor, David Sampson, who a lot of people, including you, were upset when he got sentenced for extortion and bribery, basically to a vacation. Tell folks about David Sampson, who he is, and why you have taken on the fight against him.
Now, this is important to understand. David Sampson was the Attorney General of the state of New Jersey for Democratic Governor Jim McGreevey. He is a bipartisan criminal hack. He is equally unjust to both sides of the fence. But he was chairman of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey at the time that these lanes were closed. He is the one that was, quote unquote, helping to retaliate against Patrick Foy for having the audacity to undo the unsafe condition and undo the mass retaliation that was going on with the lane closures. Chairman David Sampson did that.
And he was like untouchable throughout all this stuff. He never was interviewed, not even by Christie's team. He was not, he basically quit the Port Authority job and went into hiding.
Isn't that remarkable? He was the chairman. He was listed in the emails as helping to retaliate, and we never heard a sworn testimony from him. But what happened was that during the course of the investigation into Bridgegate, they found a series of emails which were proof beyond a reasonable doubt that he had committed extortion and bribery, and I'll tell you what that was. There was a guy named Jamie Foxx who was a lobbyist for United Airlines and is a friend of all the insiders in New Jersey politics. He's a beloved, and they're all beloved people.
He used to live in New Brunswick, actually.
So, and I'm sure he's a nice guy, but that doesn't make him an ethical guy. And we as Democrats have to stop dealing with who's right instead of what's right. But in this case, David Sampson wanted a flight to go directly from Newark, New Jersey to Columbia, South Carolina, where he had a vacation home that he liked to go to every weekend.
Right, wouldn't that be nice?
Wouldn't that be nice? And they'd save him an hour and a half of driving each week by forcing United Airlines to run a money-losing flight every Thursday and bring him back every Monday. This was something he wanted. Now, when United didn't want anything, he had no leverage, but United needed a new aircraft hangar in Newark, because that is one of their major terminals, and that's where they do a lot of aircraft maintenance and repair.
And a lot of people don't realize the Port Authority, one of the big things they do is run 4 different airports in the New York metro area, all the big ones. So
now
it's not,
5.
Okay, yeah, now 5. It's not just bridges and tunnels or the PATH trains. They're actually running these airports, and that's big business, obviously.
Sure, and it's billions of dollars of business, with the fees and stuff. But when United Airlines, the major carrier at Newark Airport, wants a hangar, there's no lawful reason to deny that to them. So David Sampson used that as leverage, and he did so in a childish and comical way, because he put it all in emails. I don't know what is wrong with these criminals. They don't know any better, but they're not doing it. He literally extorted via email United Airlines into running that flight. He put in emails that he was pulling it from the agenda. Jamie Foxx said, "You've got them dancing," and his response was, "Good, I hope they dance to my tune. This will save me a lot of heartache. I like to go to this vacation home." So they have him, but what's different about this rich, white, powerful chairman of the Port Authority facing a mandatory 5 years in jail for what he did? He was never indicted. He made 2 court appearances, and that was it. I have appeared in court more times than David Sampson on the crimes that David Sampson committed. He showed up on the day they released an information because they never got the information that they provided was in lieu of an indictment. Because if they let
right, he cut a deal. He got the deal.
He got a deal before a grand jury. This is important about the grand jury because once a grand jury gets evidence of a crime, they're not limited to what's brought before them. Paul Fishman protected this man by not allowing a grand jury to look at the evidence, and that's significant.
Now, right off the bat, what makes you think that Paul Fishman did that? Is it are Christie people still running the USA's office, or is this just a deferential thing to a guy who's been around a while?
I could speculate on any number of reasons, but remember, this man was the Attorney General of the state of New Jersey. He's got leverage. This is Jersey. Everybody's got leverage on everybody else in this race and elsewhere. They are all compromised and conflicted by some sort of misconduct. And this man says, you want to overturn every stone? Well, just be careful what creepy crawlies might be uncovered if I have to start talking. They did not want that man to be faced with jail time or cooperating. So they said
then he might throw somebody else.
Exactly right. He had every opportunity to put Christie in jail, and they did not want that. Look, what happened here was basically a protection racket for the governor of New Jersey. This was not an attempt. Look, the Bridgegate Committee never subpoenaed him. Can you imagine if I had subpoena authority with respect to this? Because once you get that man under oath and he lies, it's game, set, and match. You've got him because that's per se official misconduct to commit perjury under oath. So let's just get past that, but get back to how Fishman treated Sampson. If this was a drug arrest, there would have been a grand jury impaneled, there would have been an indictment. Drug arrest. No violence, no extortion, no bribery, just a drug arrest. This man got an information where a grand jury couldn't take it on their own to ask other questions and summon other witnesses. That was a protection method right there. Next, they issue an information and have him cop to a plea deal the day the information is released. Now that minimizes the media footprint. You do something on a Friday afternoon in the summertime when everybody's away. July 14th, 2016, this comes to light, and the day it comes to light, it's announced that he's pleading guilty to one count of extortion and bribery. And they put the information of everything he did in there. And then that story sort of folded into the Bridgegate trial and faded from memory. He didn't get sentenced.
Right. If they could have sentenced him that day, they would have probably.
They could have sentenced him that day, but they decided to wait until after the Kelly and Baroni trial had been completed. Now think about the timing of this. Kelly and Baroni have a full-on trial. They get convicted, they get sentenced, and then Sampson gets his sentence because he kept his word. He did not come to the Kelly and Baroni trial, and he didn't implicate anybody else. He kept his mouth shut. So as a payoff, Judge Linares and the U.S. District Court sentenced him to, get this, house arrest at the vacation home he was extorting United Airlines into bringing him to.
Right.
Now, that was a federal charge with no mandatory minimum. But his plea on July 14th of 2016, every element of official misconduct was met by him pleading guilty, and he did not get immunity under state law in that agreement. No immunity deal was praised for him. So he is now, as we sit here, as a matter of fact and law, undisputed fact and law, guilty of official misconduct. And what does that mean? That means he has to serve 5 years in jail. Think about this. There are African Americans in jail today from the 1980s because they possessed crack cocaine, and they're serving their mandatory minimum term of imprisonment. But the rich, powerful white guy who's connected to the governor, who's connected to McGreevey and Christie, is going on vacation for his mandatory minimum 5 years. And he's not even there for the 5 years. 1 year house arrest and some community service writing legal briefs for underprivileged people. This is not justice. And there's two sides to the coin. When some people are immune from prosecution and others are subject to prosecution.
Right, and harsh sentences for drug crimes.
Harsh.
And racial disparity bigger here in New Jersey than anywhere else in any state prison system. You take a really harsh tack on folks like Christie and Sampson, but some people might be surprised. You're actually very compassionate when it comes to the vast majority of people who are in the prisons. That was a big issue at the social justice debate, and you I even borrowed your language, the incarceration nation, you call it. Tell us a little about your thoughts on that, and what would you do as governor to end that?
Okay, well, the short answer to ending that is ending the war on drugs. And I'm going to take it instead of going back to the 13th Amendment, I'm going to take it from today. What we have now is a war on drugs. This is actually a war on people. And I think I said this the last time we talked about when you declare war on drugs. Drugs are they're not an enemy. They're just an inert subject, inert product. So you have to make the people your enemy. So we have the United States of America and the state of New Jersey and local law enforcement declaring war on individuals who are sick or maybe not sick. Maybe they're recreational drug users, maybe they're drug addicts, maybe they're horribly addicted. But that doesn't make them enemies. That makes them sick people. That makes them a different people. That makes them, but they're not hurting anybody. The violence involved in drugs comes from the drug gangs who can't go to the police to protect their business, who can't go to the police to protect their supply, who can't go to the police to protect their money. So they arm themselves and they move on to, look, everything is about money, and money is the root of all evil in any of these evils that we're talking about, in all of this pain. So declaring war on drugs gave Reagan and Nixon, the two big law and order candidates, the ability to disrupt communities that didn't typically vote Republican. Hippies, pot-smoking, peace-loving hippies, and that doesn't bode well and jive well with the mantra. And because the drug trade was targeted at African Americans, the African American community and the communities of color where they could associate heroin use with minorities and then make a war on heroin use. So you come in, bust down doors, lock people up for long periods of time. You can do more time in the state of New York for possession of heroin than you can for killing a cop. And that is insane.
Right.
But this is now, we take it back a little further, and we'll go all the way back to when slavery was abolished. It wasn't abolished. It says in the 13th Amendment that slavery shall not be allowed, and I'm paraphrasing, except as punishment for a crime. So you're allowed to have slaves under the Constitution, and you're allowed to have indentured servitude under the 13th Amendment of the Constitution as long as you're punishing someone for a crime. Well, guess who decided what was going to be a crime in the area after the 13th Amendment? It was the very people who took up arms against the United States of America because they wanted the right to enslave others. So here's a loophole. Let's make laws that target African American residents of this nation, incarcerate them, have leased labor, and then lease the very people that used to be slaves back to their owners at a discount. And now the state is involved in housing and feeding the slaves. And the slave owners don't even have to bother with that. They just have their slave labor shows up at the end of a chain gang with a shotgun holding them in place, as opposed to a slave master with a whip. And that's the only difference. It's state-sponsored slavery. So that moved from Reconstruction forward. And today we're at a point in society where we have private prisons for profit that are guaranteed profit. So you've got to fill the prisons in order to make it happen. And they are now using the labor. These chairs that we're sitting on may very well have been built by prison labor somewhere at pennies on the dollar. So how is that any different? And how is that not an evil that needs to be dealt with? I mean, and as I said in the fall, there's two things that this country was founded on. The genocide of Native Americans, and look at where we are at Standing Rock. They're trying to protect their own water supply for the indigenous people that have been put on that reservation and told they can live at peace there. How many times are we going to lie to the Native American people? And we still have an incarceration nation where African Americans are enslaved in a prison system that is designed entirely from the construct of Reconstruction, which was target African Americans and make slaves out of them. And that's what happened. And you know, shame on the Democratic Party, because as I said in that other thing, Hillary Clinton is quoted as calling African American youth super predators.
They played into it.
They played into it. They out-hated the haters. And where are we because of that? We are now, since that happened, we have slipped. The income inequality, the racial inequality, the racial injustice. You know, no justice, no peace. When you know justice, you will know peace. And I don't know any justice anymore. I don't see it. I see it slipping away. And I've been fighting from the bottom up for my whole life to try and make a difference. So it's time that we have somebody at the top so that the people at the grassroots and the people at the top can come together and make something happen that's based upon sound public policy, love and compassion and empathy for other people, and just a sincere desire to do something. And I'm here, I'm offering myself to be a servant of the people. And I don't want anything in exchange for it. I don't need it. Look, I'm not a rich guy. $100,000 a year, to me, I live a very, my wildest dreams. I get $100,000 a year, and I can do what I want with my life. I want everybody to have that opportunity. I don't think you should be stuck whether you're an ex-convict who's got a scarlet letter of conviction on your record, and because you possess drugs that are going to be legal at some point anyway, you can no longer work. So what does that do? It forces you into a life of second-class status because of this pernicious war, and it's got to end.
Well, speaking of that, you called out Corrections Corporation of America by name in your remarks at that debate, and big business for them is immigration and contracts with the federal government to detain immigrants that are at an increasing clip being rounded up and arrested, in many cases having not committed any crimes at all. Tell me what you think about the whole immigration issue and ICE and what they're doing here in New Jersey, what you would do.
Well, I think it's the same cynical money grab. Look, let's get back to the root of all this. There are people on this planet, including our president, who have more money than they can spend in a lifetime. And rather than use their vast wealth and resources to make the world a better place, they are consumed with getting more. They are no different than a heroin addict who needs more. They will lie, they will cheat, they will steal, they will hurt because they need a fix. And they have a hole in their heart that is never going to be filled by all the money that they keep feeling that they need to amass. When you're a multi-billionaire and you spend your day trying to get another $1 million instead of trying to help somebody else, you're a sick, psychotic person in need of help. But somehow we've equated wealth with success, and that's not success in my view. Wealth does not equate to success because I think wealth, it's like the ring from Lord of the Rings. It will turn you into Smeagol, it warps people. People that were decent human beings get ultra wealthy, and they lose all compassion for everybody who wasn't as lucky as them. So it's greed that does it. What I'm seeing now is they've upped unlawful entry into the country without valid paperwork to a felony, so that they can now incarcerate the immigrants. They're scaring the immigrants out. They're not going to have any labor to work in the fields. Our produce prices are going to go up. People aren't going to want to come to this country in the near future. So when there's going to be a shortage of migrant farm laborers who came from other countries to work here because of the xenophobia and the harassment and everything else, at the same time they're diminishing the labor supply, they're increasing the supply of readily available prisoners who will work for pennies on the dollar without the protection of minimum wage laws, Department of Labor standards, or OSHA standards. So, yes, I believe that this is an intentional, evil-minded act designed to enslave another group of people from another country and feed that hatred and dog whistle politics of republicanism, which is founded on hate and greed and insecurity and fear. And the answer to all of that is just, you got to know in your heart that there's nothing to be afraid of. That fear, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. And fear mongers need to be rejected and they need to be called out. Look, people tell me they think I am so courageous for what I'm doing. It isn't that hard, people. Look, I'm still here. I've been doing this a long time. I've taken on mobsters, I've taken on criminals, I've taken on governors, I've taken on judges, I've taken on legislators, and I'm still here. And I'm not living in fear over what I'm doing. And as soon as we step out from the shadows and we say we're not afraid, and we know that there are like-minded people, that these communities that have been isolated and segregated into segments and slices of a pain pie, look at where my support comes from. My support comes from communities that have been suffering at the hands of ill-motivated politicians. And as soon as they start reaching out to the other communities in pain, and look, it's a common pain. I've felt it. I'm sure you've felt it. I've seen some of the work you've done. You've been subjected to it. It's a horrible feeling to have your own government turn against you. But something's happening. It's not just Trump. It's this election. There's ripples traveling out from this election that are going to become a wave. And I had a candidate when I started talking about love and compassion as an answer to the hate. I was ridiculed by an African-American candidate for governor of New Jersey, and he thought that would scare me out. I came back out and I doubled down on it, and he had his comeuppance over that because the crowd clapped for me and they didn't clap for him ridiculing love as a motive for running for office. And I'm motivated by love, loving my country, and love of my fellow human being, and love for the idea that we can work together and overcome any obstacle, we just open our eyes. And that's what we're going to do. And that's what we are doing. It's happening. I mean, look, as I sit here now, I can feel it. You know, and when something is like that in your heart, that's what's going to win the day here. It's not going to be, look, I have tremendous policy proposals, and I hope you go to Brennan2017.com and look at my specific, comprehensive policy platform at your leisure. But all of my policy is rooted in a desire to serve and a knowledge that we can do better than what's in it for me and how can I scratch your back and what do I owe. And I don't owe anybody anything, and the people that support me are not expecting anything. I haven't hired anybody. There's not one paid campaign staffer on my campaign, and I have spent less than $2,000 trying to get elected governor. So, and I'm climbing in the polls at a rapid rate.
Doing quite well. Now, I do want to ask you, you mentioned about the President of the United States, that you think he's psychotic.
Yes.
He's, I guess fair to say, unfit for office. And for somebody who loves the country so much, I obviously feel the same way. What the hell are we supposed to do? Like you said, you've taken on these big shots, you've taken on a lot of people. I think I'm kind of maybe unusual because I ask the candidates right now. I ask them all. Should we impeach Christie? Should we impeach Trump? Should we impeach both? And some people look at me like that's a crazy question. But I asked you these questions, and you said Christie doesn't need to be impeached; he needs to be incarcerated.
True.
And what do you think about Donald Trump? Should he be impeached? Should the 25th Amendment be invoked? Should he be incarcerated? What do you feel about the President of the United States?
Yes, and yes. Impeached, 25th Amendment, and incarcerated. The man is a sociopath, and he's a con man. And look, he has supporters who don't care that he lies on a regular basis. And that's what got Jersey into this got there. And he's going to go down in history as the most unfit and unpopular president in the history of the free world. But we have the experience of a sociopathic liar, of a pathological liar in New Jersey, to see where we're going as a country, to see what's going to happen, to see where the Democrats failed in opposition to this megalomaniac, egotistical, lying sack of garbage that happens to be the governor of New Jersey. And look, I'm speaking coarsely and bluntly because people are tired of the milquetoast, tippy-toe around and not say what you mean and try not to offend anybody. If you're offended by the fact that I'm calling the governor of New Jersey a lying piece of garbage, then you should find out what's exactly false about my statement. He is a pathological, habitual liar who lies about the lies he lied about lying about. And that is a problem. And Donald Trump is of the same ilk. They are the same con man. They are selling something on late night TV. If I get a bamboo steamer with the next vote, I won't be surprised. I mean, this is bizarre. People, it's easier to convince somebody, it's easier to fool somebody than to convince somebody they've been fooled. So we have a work cut out for us. We're not going to do it confronting them. We're going to do it reaching out to people. We're going to do it embracing people. Now, Trump is not long for the presidency here. But we have to.
You don't think he'll last 4 years? You think he's going to go?
No, I don't think any reasonable person thinks that he can sustain this level of mendacity and this level of incompetence that is on display, that is really jeopardizing the safety of the planet.
It's dangerous, yeah.
I mean, look, there's North Korea, Russia. I mean, look, all of these issues are legitimate issues, and anybody who's not paying attention to that, really, they're not going to pay attention to what they can do about it. But what we can do about it is every vote counts. And we have an opportunity now to make a statement at a statewide level. There's only 2 statewide races coming on now, the governor of New Jersey and the governor of Virginia. The New Jersey residents have the opportunity to decide for themselves who is a sincere and real candidate who has the best interest of the state at heart, who is coming from the heart, and who has a track record of speaking truth to power and fighting that. Look, I didn't just start with Christie last year. I mean, you could go on YouTube and look at me when he came to the Wayne-Town Forum. I challenged him then. I've been on radar Chris Christie's case since 2010. So when Democrats endorsed Chris Christie and the Democratic Party didn't jettison them, look at Joe DiVincenzo from Essex County. The Democratic Party has continued to embrace that man. This is not about party politics anymore. The establishment Democratic Party in New Jersey is as corrupt as Chris Christie. They are as dirty and down low as Chris Christie. And I'm a Democrat running for governor in the Democratic Party. And I'm telling you, my party needs a house cleaning. It is profoundly broken. And the way that they're going about doing what they're doing is bully tactics. It's the same tactics. They're trying to push people around and force people to spend money and get in line and go along and get along. And go along and get along is not working.
Yeah, in New Jersey, it's hard to tell the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. Often is.
Look at David Sampson. He was a Democratic Attorney General, and he was a Republican Chairman of the Port Authority, and he had bipartisan support from the establishment to keep him out of jail. They all wrote letters for him saying what a great guy he was. Open and notorious, brazen and belligerent extorter. And if you think that was his first foray into the world of extortion and bribery, then I got a bridge to sell you, or close for you.
Well, yeah, you can check out, actually, New Brunswick Today did that coverage of the letters that everybody wrote for David Sampson. There's one last thing I want to ask you about. I know there's these two debates that are official debates, sort of, that the Election Law Enforcement Commission is sponsoring and putting on. Because by virtue of the fact you didn't raise $430,000 for your campaign, you're going to be excluded from those debates. I guess somebody got together and got a couple of the candidates that are in the debates to actually sign a letter saying they want you in the debate. And you are, I guess, not going to be in the debate, but you're counter-programming your own debate. Tell us what's going to happen tomorrow down at the Stockton University campus.
Okay, well, let me give you a little brief history of how this happened. There's a law in the books that says if you accept public money, you must participate in the debate. And it's a laudable public policy and a wonderful statute.
But to get the matching funds, you need to get
$430,000. But if you don't raise $430,000 or you don't accept campaign matching funds, you're allowed to write yourself a check for $430,000. Now, I don't have the resources to write myself a check for $430,000. I have one student in college. I have another one who's going to college next year. I'm paying off my own student loans from law school. I make an upper middle class salary, and I don't have $430,000 at my disposal to loan my campaign. Phil Murphy wrote a check for $10 million to his own campaign, and Ray Lesniak didn't raise $430,000, but he wrote his campaign check for $200 and something thousand. Essentially, you can buy your way into a state-sponsored debate. So now this debate is being run with my public money, with my tax dollars. I collected enough signatures to be on the ballot. There are only 6 candidates on the ballot, but only 4 of them are participating. 2 raise the money and have to participate, and 2 want to participate so they can write checks and buy their way in. And the other 2 want to participate, didn't raise the money, and can't write the check. So in the Republican field, the same thing happened. A guy named Joe Rullo and Steve Rogers didn't raise the money and couldn't write themselves checks for $430,000. So Joe Rullo and Steve Rogers and Bill Brennan and Mark Zinner are having a street corner debate outside Stockton University tomorrow. It's going to be moderated by Citizens Media TV. I hope you guys will come down and help.
We love Citizens Media TV.
And we're going to have all the trappings of an outdoor debate with a podium and speakers and lights and microphones and live streaming, and we are going to have a more interesting debate. Because what you're going to get, I'm predicting, from the Democrats and Republicans in the debate is not answers to the questions. I find that when they get answered questions, they go to a can, they open up the can, they shake out their answer, and you could get that on their website. You know the answer that they're going to give to every question on their website. We don't do that. You ask me a question, I'm going to tell you what I think, and you may or may not like my answer, but you'll know that that's what I believe. And I don't know what these other candidates believe, because they put their finger in the air, they see which way the wind is blowing, and then they decide. I mean, it's like legalization of marijuana. I was the first candidate to have that as a point heading on his website.
Right, you support it.
I support legalization, and I argue for it passionately about why it's a good idea and how horrible it is that we've made it illegal and how we've marginalized people. Well, the other candidates have seen the applause lines that I'm getting and the enthusiasm for my stance on that. Well, John Wisniewski is slowly moving from this position that he only supports decriminalization, and now he's leaning towards legalization. Phil Murphy was a legalization guy, but he's now got it on his website, and he's hyping it. Mark Zinner is coming around to it, and Lesniak, I'm not sure where he stands. But
he actually announced right here in this chair on Friday that he's going to support it. So.
Okay, so he's moved. He didn't sign on to Scutari's bill last year. Well, I've been wanting legalization 10 years. I mean, look, I donate to Normal. I think that this is an important part of making us a fair and just economy. And again, that's another thing that was rooted in evil of money. William Randolph Hearst and the wood pulp paper industry and the reefer madness propaganda, all designed so somebody could enrich themselves at the expense of other people. So our debate is going to have real ideas, fresh perspective, and also a give and take between the opposing sides. We're not all.
You'll have both parties in your
Yes,
debate.
I will be debating Republican candidates for governor tomorrow night, and if you want to see somebody, a preview of how a Democrat can outperform a Republican on the issues and not make personal attacks out of it, and not be divisive, just clearly say, this is why I have a different policy position than you, this is why I think your position is wrong, and this is why we need to move on as a country and get away from this xenophobia and all kinds of horrible crap that is coming down the line as a consequence of this incompassionate conservatism that we're dealing with in this country. So yes, tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, hopefully you'll pick up the feed and run into outside Stockton University. You should come, because the more people that are outside, the more that the powers that be, the establishment people, will realize that we are ready for regular citizens with pureness of heart who want to do the right thing, and not some packaged candidate that answers out of a can. And that's the difference we're going to have here.
Well, Bill, kudos to you. You've been fighting to get your voice heard here, and New Brunswick Today's always got your back when it comes to that. Thanks so much for joining us today. Tell folks where they can find you online.
Brennan2017.com is my website. At Bill Brennan Says is my Twitter handle, and Bill Brennan for Governor is my Facebook page.
All right, Bill, we'll give them hell tomorrow. Check it out tomorrow night, Tuesday night, outside Stockton University's campus. We're going to have Citizens Media TV covering that. So like them on Facebook. They're good friends of ours. And tune in on Friday when we'll have another candidate for governor, Mr. Mark Zinna, here on the New Brunswick Today Show. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a good one. Good luck, Bill.
Hey, Charlie.